Recording started here. So hello and welcome to this public hearing to discuss proposed changes to Vermont's CO2 budget trading regulations. These regulations implement Vermont's participation in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, or RGGI. My name is Lauren Ashbrook, and I am the Climate Change Mitigation Section Lead in the Climate Action Office within Vermont's Agency of Natural Resources. And I am joined by my colleagues, Brian Woods, Rachel Stevens, and Jane Lazorchik. And I'll ask you all to really briefly introduce yourselves, if you don't mind, before I walk through the agenda. So over to you, Brian.
Yes, good afternoon. I'm Brian Woods. I'm the Mitigation and Modeling Coordinator for the Climate Action Office, and I'm the staff lead for the state's participation in the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative.
Rachel?
Good afternoon. I'm Rachel Stevens. I'm an attorney supporting the Climate Action Office and implementing RGGI.
Afternoon, Jane Lazorchik. I lead the Climate Action Office.
Wonderful. For a quick outline of our conversation today, we are going to, after these introductions and meeting logistics, speak to a summary of the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative third program review, and then get into the proposed changes to the Vermont CO2 budget trading regulations. That will be followed by content on CO2 allowance auction provisions and implementations, as well as some brief information on the Vermont rulemaking process and schedule, and finally, an opportunity for public comment. I'll note that we'll end promptly at 5 p.m. So for our meeting logistics, this is a public meeting. After we share information, participants will have the opportunity to ask questions or make comments about the proposed changes that we discussed today. All of these comments will be recorded, and these will be part of the formal record that the Agency of Natural Resources is creating as we hear from the public. One note, it's important to note that comments typed into this meeting chat are not recorded in the public record. So this meeting is being recorded, and that recording will be made available after the meeting, so you should have access to it. It will be published on the climatechange.vermont.gov website, specifically on the RGGI page. Presentation slides are also available upon request. You can email Brian for those directly at brian.woods@vermont.gov. Please hold any questions or comments until after the presentation. And there are numbers in the lower left corner of the slides if you want to sort of note down what slide is most pertinent to your question, and we're happy to return to it. And please raise your hand to be called on to ask a question or make a comment. And the raise hand function should be at the top of your screen in Teams between the people and the react icons. It's a little hand. You can lower it by clicking it again once you've made your comment. So I think those are the key meeting logistics to offer. And with that, I will pass it over to Brian Woods to share with us more information on RGGI.
Thank you, Lauren. Just going to do a brief background into the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. It's a regional bipartisan initiative to reduce carbon dioxide emissions from electricity generation. And it was founded in 2007 with the first auction of allowances taking place in 2009. And to date, we've actually completed 71 auctions of the allowances that establish the cap. Now, the states establish their emission limits or caps for CO2, and those individual caps collectively establish a regional cap on CO2 emissions from electricity generation. The auctions of the allowances that compose the cap occur 4 times a year. The compliance period is a 3-year period that allows for adjustments based upon increasing or decreasing demands for electricity due primarily to weather conditions or pricing or other issues. So each compliance entity has a 3-year compliance period, but there are annual interim compliance periods. So you have to make up some portion of your compliance obligation each year, and at the end of 3 years, your entire compliance obligation. You can see in the map the list of the participating states. Those are in solid blue. You'll notice that Virginia at the bottom is cross-hatched in blue. With the recent change in Virginia's administration, they are in the process of participating. There'll be more information about that either through RGGI Inc. or through the Virginia administration as the year goes on. But they participated previously, and we are happy to have them back. So before I get into more of the presentation, I wanted to just define some of the key terms that are related to the program. So I talked about the cap as the annual limit on carbon dioxide emissions. And as I said, it's established by the number of CO2 allowances that are made available at each auction or annually from the 4 auctions that happen in a year. And the allowances are a limited authorization to emit 1 short ton of carbon dioxide from a regulated source. And that's a fossil fuel burning electricity generation plant. Most often with a capacity of 25 megawatts or more, with a lower threshold in New York. In addition to the regular allowances, there are cost containment reserve. That's an annual supply of additional allowances that are available at the auction if the auction clearing price goes above a set price that we announce before each auction. There's also currently an emissions containment reserve, and that's an amount of allowances that we can be withheld from an auction if the clearing price is below a set limit. And then finally, auction reserve price. If you've been on eBay, you know all about this. It's the lowest price that an allowance can be sold for at auction. So allowances have a minimum price that we will sell them at. We're talking about the 3rd program review that was initiated by the states in October in 2021. There was a series of public engagement activities that happened with all the states working together. There were 2 public listening sessions that took place in autumn of 2021. There were 2 public meetings in December 2021, program review update in November of 2022, 2 additional public meetings in 2023, March and September, and finally a program review update in September 2024. Then we announced the results of the program review just this past July in 2025. The program review, in addition to the public engagement activities, including power sector and economic impact modeling, I'll be talking more about that in the slides coming up. And it resulted in the release of the model rule and additional commitments. That was in July. And states are now in the process, each state is in the process of implementing their state rules consistent with the model rule, and we are doing the same. And the commitment that all the states made was that we are going to initiate the 4th program review no later than 2028. So the summary of the program review is the updates that the states agreed to was to decrease the regional cap, to implement a 2-tier cost containment reserve, to retire the emissions containment reserve, to increase the reserve price, and to retire the offset project provisions. So I'll talk about the first 3 in the next slide because I have a picture. The offset project provisions are provisions that allowed a project sponsor or a regulated entity to sponsor a particular project outside of the electricity generation sector, such as in agriculture or landfill methane or forest management, that could earn allowances for the decrease in CO2 emissions from performing that project. This was a feature that was brought into the program in its early years. There's only been 1 project in the entire RGGI region, a landfill methane project in Maryland, that was approved for as an offset project. We have seen no additional applications for offset projects And so we are, as a group, deciding to remove them from the program. Although any of the offset project allowances that were earned by that Maryland project that are still in circulation are available for compliance, to demonstrate compliance. So moving on to the how the program is going to work. I know there's a lot of lines on this figure, but there's a light blue line that decreases from 2024 to 2030 and then stays at a level just under 70 million tons. That's the current program as it's designed now. So what we have done is we're going to adopt a new cap starting in 2027, and that's the dark blue line, where we're going to decrease the trajectory of the cap. We're going to drop it down to 69.8 million tons in 2027, which is a reduction of nearly 8% from the previous 2027 number. And the cap will be decreased by 8.6 million tons a year through 2033. Then the trajectory changes a little bit, starting in 2034 out to 2037. It reduces at 2.4 million tons a year, and then it is flat at going on from there out to 2040. And that's to acknowledge that as we decarbonize the electric sector, that it may become more challenging to get the last part of the electric sector decarbonized in the out years. And that, coupled with the commitment to start the next program review in 2028, will allow the possibility of refining this trajectory during that program review, that next program review. As I said, the ECR was retired in 2027. That's the green 3 dots over to the left. So that would be the number of allowances, the cap that would be in place if the ECR was triggered. ECR has never been triggered since it was implemented. The price has always been well above the ECR trigger price, and it's been well above even the reserve price in the recent past. And so we're going to retire the ECR, but we're going to institute a reserve price that's at the same price as the ECR. So that will be $9 in 2027 per allowance, and that will increase at 7% a year. And then the last 2 lines, the red line and the yellow line, they're above the dark blue line. Those are the trajectories, the number of allowances that would be released with the 2-tier cost containment reserves. So if it was released at its maximum level of 11.7 million tons each in every year. That doesn't always happen. So these are potential trajectories, but they're not actual trajectories. They could be realized depending upon the demand for allowances. So the orange line is for the CCR1 tier, and that trigger price is $19.50 in 2027. And the tier 2 price is $29.25 in 2027. And those prices will increase at 7% a year. So looking specifically at Vermont, we have a share of the regional budget that will be 470,000 tons in 2027. So a reduction of 7.8%, identical to the regional cap. And then an annual reduction of about 51,000 tons a year through 2033. And then the slightly less aggressive trajectory of 14,500 tons a year, 2034 to 2037. And then it stays at that level of 43,687 tons a year to 2038 through 2040. And as I mentioned, just as with the model rule, the offset project provisions have been retired. To explore the potential effects of this program, the states, with great assistance from RGGI Inc., which is the nonprofit that helps assist the states in implementing the program, We performed modeling of the electric power sector using the integrated planning model. This is a version of the same model that EPA uses for electric sector modeling. And in this program review, because there was and remains a lot of uncertainty regarding the availability of renewable energy, so non-emitting energy, we developed two future scenarios for renewable energy availability. A case A that talks about or that models only procured renewable projects. So those are projects in the participating states that were either under construction or under firm contract. And then a case B that's more optimistic, that includes all procured renewable projects in case A, plus all of the renewable energy goals that are in the participating state statutes, policies, or regulations. So depending upon the scenario that we explored, the regional emissions were reduced by 111 to 277 million tons. That's 26 to 48% in the period 2028 to 2037, as compared to the reference cases for each of those scenarios. So we realized more emissions reductions on the high side in case B than we do in case A. And this slide includes the reference to the results that are available on the RGGI page during the program, program release page on the RGGI internet site. There was also an economic impact analysis that we used the REMI model, Regional Economic Model Incorporated. That's a well-known and widely used model for studying macroeconomic results. It explores employment level, gross state product, and disposable personal income. And we did this analysis both at the regional level, so for all 10 participating states, and then also at the state level. And so at the regional level, at a macroeconomic level, we see slightly positive results, very slightly positive results, less than 0.03% in all of those categories, all those criteria. And in Vermont, the effect is even less pronounced. It's near zero. So even with a more ambitious cap, we are seeing a very, very small positive results for those in a macroeconomic area, in those macroeconomic criteria. For customer bills at the region, they are always decreased in every scenario up to 1.14%. And in Vermont, they slightly decrease if renewable energy keeps pace with demand. So that's scenario B. And they slightly increase if they do not. And the reason for the difference is that in Vermont, the investments, the revenue that's accrued from the participation in the program is invested in thermal energy. And in many other states that are participating, a lot of that investment goes instead either to electric efficiency or to renewable energy projects. And so what that means is that even though we are saving money in the thermal energy, with thermal energy investments, customers are, on the electricity side, they are not realizing the same results at the regional level. So when allowance prices are higher in case A, then you see a slight increase in Vermont electric. So this regulation, those are the provisions that you're going to see in the regulation. There are provisions that are implemented by the Public Utility Commission. They manage our participation in the auctions. So the provisions regarding the cost containment reserve and the updated reserve price will be implemented through Public Utility Commission orders. Other actions that the Public Utility Commission takes include implementing the voluntary renewable set aside. So that is a small amount of allowances that are made available to electricity generation that is from a renewable source that emits. In particular, those apply to the GMP cow power program. Also, the PHC has the authority to retire any unused allowances. And we haven't had any unused allowances for quite some time, but that is in their purview to take them out of the market if they are not sold at auction. So I'm going to pass it over to Rachel Stevens to talk about the rulemaking process and schedule.
Okay, thanks, Brian. So as you can see from the slides, the Agency of Natural Resources initiated the formal rulemaking process in February, and we intend to complete the process before January 1st, 2027. We're currently in the public comment period, and we appreciate any comments from folks in the room today or comments that are submitted in writing to the agency through April 6th. All rulemaking materials can be found online. There's our forms that were submitted with the Secretary of State, as well as a technical support document that explains in more detail what Brian has reviewed today. So I'll leave it there.
All right, just a last slide here with some reference materials or additional information, most of which we've referred to throughout the presentation. So as a quick reminder, the recording will be made available after this meeting at climatechange.vermont.gov. That's the Climate Action Office website, and the recording will be specifically posted to the RGGI page. Presentation slides can be accessed if you directly request them from brian.woods@vermont.gov. Also, RGGI Inc.'s program review webpage has a wealth of information about what we've been discussing today. And there's additional RGGI information on the site linked to above about the shape of the program and the proposed amendments. So with that, we will be happy to take any questions or comments if there are any. We appreciate your time.